Let's think back about the last 12 months, both personally and professionally. What are some things over the last 12 months that that you've celebrated?
I'm be on my best behavior today.
Is it opposite day?
All right. We're back. Another episode of Chap and Chap. Yeah, we got to fire that up. Thanks for joining us again. This is our second episode of Season 2 of Chap and Chap. Creeping up on a year of doing this. Thanks for following us. We appreciate that. Occasionally get people talking about it in the community, which is always good conversations, you know. Send us an email at chief.cap.chap@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We do read those, and we appreciate all the support that we get in those emails and ideas for shows and stuff like that. I do jot those down, and we just try to coordinate as we can as we go along. Obviously, this is a side gig for us, so if you see like a professionalism and stuff, that's the reason. So. I'm trying to apologize for Broom. Yeah,
Appreciate that.
I'm there for you, man.
He made us a promise today. He's going to be good.
He said he's going to be on his best behavior.
Best behavior.
Yeah, it's interesting. What do we want to talk about today? It's one of these episodes where we're just going to kind of shoot the bull, as they say. You know.
Yeah, I think it'd be really great to look back on maybe the last 12 months with us starting Season 2 of the podcast and kind of a new year here as we're in the first week of February, looking to how the year went, both maybe professionally and personally, and then looking for what we got going for this year.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I have a really low voice right now.
You've been getting sick.
Yeah.
That flu's going around. Have you got the flu yet?
No, I don't think so. But, yeah, I only get usually sick like once, maybe in the wintertime, but I've had it twice in the last month, and I'm like, what the heck?
I got that, you know this, I already complained to you about it, but I got that, I guess it was flu or something. I never got tested, but that, you know, post-nasal drip and all that stuff, and I tried to just push through that, and then about 6 days into it, I got really sick, and I was like, I got to take a couple of days off here.
That was the first time I got sick, was about a month ago, and I'm riding with Chief. He's like, oh, it's just allergies. I'm fine. It was not allergies, unless they're contagious.
Contagious allergies.
Yeah, you're getting older. It's probably just your allergies acting up. Probably what it is. Yeah.
So when we think about goals and the future, it does us well to look back. And so let's think back about the last 12 months, both personally and professionally. What are some things over the last 12 months that that you've celebrated?
That we celebrated. I'm bad at this game, man, because it's kind of on the spot. I don't know, I feel like that we've made a lot of progress in the department. I remember it's probably July. I was thinking, things are going really well here. And I mean, just like the statistical information, lots of good supervisors, good officers, and the culture of the department was really good. And I was really happy about that. I think there's a lot of work behind the scenes that everybody, it's not just me, everybody puts forward. And that really made me happy, and you actually started seeing results of all of your efforts, and then we kind of went into telling the community about that. And we're not without, we're not perfect, and there's things that we need to continue to work on for sure. But when you put that work in, and you can kind of see the fruits of your labor in a positive light, that's a good thing. You know, and that's what we're all here trying to do, trying to just trying to better our community, better our department. So makes you kind of proud of that. So not just for me, but I mean other people are proud of that too. So citizens are proud of that, and I celebrated that. So
Yeah, sure. What about you, John? Something you celebrated last year?
The biggest thing that comes to mind professionally, I think, and to kind of go along with what Chief is talking about, is our academy. We've talked a lot about the academy that we've had, and those guys are doing that. They're working their full-time job in fire division, and, when they get done with that job, then they go do 4 or 5 hours every night of the police academy. And so it was a longer time period. Normally, it's a lot shorter, but they're getting 4 hours here, 4 hours here. And, so it took a little bit longer. And so that academy started May.
Middle of May.
Yeah.
May 18th.
Yeah. And so to me, it's like, when you plant that garden, you plant the seeds and you start watering them and you're anticipating all these great vegetables and these plants and these flowers. But, you get a little impatient. You're like, okay, I'm ready to see the fruit of my labor. But no, you have to be patient. So now with our academy is getting ready to graduate in about 2 weeks. So now it's like, that's really exciting to me. Seeing these new guys use this information and knowledge that's been passed down to them and to hit the streets and to see what it's really like about policing. So that's really what I'm excited about. And that's going to be a huge benefit to us as far as manpower and staffing. To have 10 guys that are now going to be post-certified and able to police we've never had that in the history of this department as far as I know.
They're excited about it. And if you didn't see the last episode, we had two of them on here. Had Craig and Vance, some great guys. And I thought that was an interesting podcast. I'm always wondering about their perspective because I obviously know my perspective, but it's kind of hard to and you sit down and spend time like that and kind of, pick their brain. It's always interesting to me. Yeah,
another part of that too, another caveat of just kind of where we're headed with staffing is, and I was talking to Chief about this the other day, is within the last probably 3 to 6 months or so, we've had some laterals come back. We've had an officer, Casey Riddle, had a ton of experience here, sergeant here, SRO. He wanted to come back to work here, and so his experience and knowledge is so valuable, especially now when we have a lot of younger officers. To have him come back and help show and teach and train these guys is huge. We've had a couple officers from other departments within the area that have decided to come here. So having those laterals that are already trained, they've been doing the job, they know how to do the job. Their experience is huge, especially now with having a lot of new guys out there. So.
And we would take some more laterals.
Absolutely.
Hint.
Yeah. Laterals is a lateral hire is really it's the biggest bang for your buck. They're post certified. They have experience. They know how to do the job.
Get them right to work.
Yeah. They pretty much get the keys. I mean, they still go through their field training program. It's abbreviated program depending on how well they're progressing. Of course, if somebody's not from here, you have to learn all the streets and policies and procedures and all that. So there's a little time there, but. That's really where it's at.
Yeah. And, people generally get, in their departments and their careers, and you don't see a lot of movement a lot of times. It's hard to get laterals, in other departments. And sometimes we lose officers here and they go work other places and they get the lateral, and that's unfortunate. But, people are trying to improve their careers and they got spouses and their spouse's job may take them somewhere else. And so, it's just some things you can't really plan for. It just happens all the time,
Yeah, and I think you can kind of gauge, like, you talked about the atmosphere of the department and how things are going. And it seems like when you have people that were here that then left and now they're coming back, to me, that's a testament to, like, they're seeing, like, oh, things seem to be better there. From whatever they felt, 5 years ago or 15 years ago or whatever the case may be. But they're like, man, that seems like things are going well there. I want to get back there. And I think that's a testament to the work that is done to make that happen.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily just us either. I mean, the benefit package that the city has here is really good, and that's a hard thing to sell to people. I think oftentimes officers will leave and they kind of take that for granted. Then they end up at another department and find out the benefits are not that great, and then they're like, "Geez, this is this is difficult or more expensive." Especially if you have any medical issues or something like that. So, but yeah, certainly, I think even with that, there's got to be a certain level of got to be doing something right. That, and I've seen that throughout my whole career. Even 20 years ago, people would leave and they'd come back. So.
Yeah, I'm actually a good example of that. I lived that experience. I left here for a few years and went up to Cape, and which I liked. I liked Cape. Cape was a great place to live, and I really liked the departments that I worked for up there. But to me, Sykeston really was kind of always my home away from home. Of course, born and raised Campbell, but now I've lived in Sykeston longer than I've lived anywhere. So I was really glad to come back here. I don't know. This is, to me, this is where it began and where it's going to end for me, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of great things happening. I mean, I think from my perspective, watching the academy happen here and seeing the guys, as I have conversations with them, talking to some of the guys that are in the academy, and there is, I would say, an excitement that I don't know that I've necessarily felt from guys in the academy when they were going somewhere and doing the academy. Like there's just something about that. The guys here that are in the academy here, they seem to be also forming this bond with them. So, they're kind of like the brothers in the first academy locally. And you can kind of sense that. I just had a conversation with one of the guys the other day and talking about their PT test that they just did. And to see that bond, you can tell it's there. And so that's got to be a positive as well. Yeah,
for sure. And that was fun to watch. The first time we went out and did PT, I was really excited to see. I'm a very team-oriented person. We've talked about my history or background in sports, how much I love sports and the team concept. Well, that first night that we go out and do PT, they really hadn't been around each other that much as a group, but immediately they were encouraging each other and pushing each other. And, some guys would get done before the others, and then they would go join the person that was a little bit slower or whatever.
Right.
And so to see that right out of the gate was super encouraging. And then, of course, that was in May. So now it's towards the end, they've really formed a good bond. And that's something they'll remember. You remember your academy class your entire life. Like there's things that you'll remember, people in there, and you'll never forget them. And I told them that early on. I'm like, this group that you have now, the bonds that you have at the end of this academy, you'll have for a life.
Yep. So. And I think that's got to be also strengthening. When you're doing the academy with people that are going to go to other departments, so to speak. And I mean, I'm sure there's that type of relationship as well. But you're also knowing, like, at the end of this, you're going here. These guys may be on the same squad together. And so what they do in the academy is building that relational equity for those times on the streets when it's difficult or they're going to need each other. And I think that's really cool to see as well.
Well, it's good for the officers that are teaching and stuff like that too. I mean, it's rejuvenating, I think, because you're going into, like, some of our supervisors, other officers are going in and they're teaching these young cadets, the basics and the information expertise that they know. And it's just kind of rejuvenating. Have you been out to the new academy that is at SCTC yet?
I haven't. John was telling me about that last week. I haven't been out there, but I'm wanting to get by there and see it.
We need to look at their agenda list and see how we can incorporate you in there. I mean, there's you do a lot of stuff here. Not to inflate your ego, but you do, and that's an important aspect for people to realize. And I mean, just like mental health or anything like that. Just various aspects of those parts of the job that we can teach in the academy too. So
something that comes to mind is it's actually a subject that I just taught this morning, and it's about building department culture. There's different types of cultures police departments can have. They can have a good, positive, community-related department, or they could be that department where it's us versus them, the police against the community. And I think when you have your own academy per se, or you have a big influence on, your officers teaching in the academy, you can set that culture and what that standard should be right out of the gate. And so I think that's a huge benefit as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be really great. The graduation is, as we sit here today, it's 2 weeks, right?
That's
the 19th?
That's our internal academy is on the 19th. They take their test, I think, on the 17th. Is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Their post test on the 17th. But this one out at SCTC that just started, when did it start?
It was 1st of January.
1st of January. So that's a mixed group. There's 15 people in there?
Yeah, 14 or 15. And there's some people that are already hired by other departments. I think Malden has
we have like 4 in there, I think, something like that. Yeah.
Malden, Donovan, I think KPD has some people in there or has a person in there. Bloomfield, I believe. So, it's a mixed
County
bag.
Maybe or something like that.
Malden. I mentioned Malden.
And how long does that one go? Is it the same length?
Well, it's a little bit quicker because so they're going 8 hours a day, 5 days a week versus, 4 or 5 hours here or there. So it will finish in May.
Gotcha.
And so it's a lot faster process.
Gotcha. Well, so those are some good things that are happening. But we know when we're setting goals for the year, we also have to look at some of the things that were not so great or some struggles that we had. So what are some things that didn't go well last year?
There's always hurdles. I think some of the things is maybe there's some misunderstandings. We're always working on community relations, and maybe some misunderstandings of what we do or how we handle certain things, and those are always frustrating because we want to do the best job that we can, and just really trying to communicate to people, I guess what their concerns are and what our concerns are and how we handle those. So that's always, I think, a struggle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That's and I'm going to state the obvious here, where we lost Henry Franklin. That was goes without saying. That
Sure.
was a terrible moment in my career, my life, so
Yeah.
it's enough about that. But, and then sometimes you lose officers that you hate to lose, but not going back in that conversation, and some of them come back and everything else. But I don't know. I had to really think about that. But like I said, it's a good question. I'm not very good at the code questions. I almost got to pull my calendar up or my email and be like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay. What about what was something that surprised you last year?
There's always that officer that surprises me. They're kind of like that diamond in the rough, And I can think of a couple guys that, when they come to work here, maybe they spend a lot of time at fire division. It's been a while before they come to the street and they start policing. You kind of think to yourself, does that guy or gal, are they really cut out for this job? Are they going to be able to handle it mentally and physically, and are they going to do a good job, or had they rather be in fire division? So I can think of a couple of officers that I'm like, it's a really pleasantly surprised when they turn out to be really good police officers, when maybe their background was in firefighting and they came here specifically with the interest of firefighting, but understood they needed to do the policing aspect. But then they come to police division and they do a really good job policing.
Yeah.
So that's always a really pleasant surprise, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always nice. What was your question?
What's something that surprised you last year?
Something that surprised me. Well, I can tell you the stats really surprised me because, I was really surprised that our violent crime stats were so far down as they were. And like I said, we just pushed that stuff out to the community, and that was really positive, So
Yeah. Cool. So that's, when we talk about those things, we're talking professionally and kind of big picture. But what about you individually? Where's an area that you grew last year without realizing it until you maybe thought about it later?
Well, I think leading through those difficult times is always a challenge, and it's very difficult to do that. I felt a little more prepared this time, because I've been in a position over 6 years and have had some difficult things to deal with for sure. But I think I was a little, surprised that. Not that it was easy, because it was not, but I think a lot of that is just having to go through these difficulties with command staff and with support that I have. You know what I mean? The good officers. Because you never go through this thing alone. You know what I mean? You're always leaning on each other as you go through. You're picking each other's brains, trying to figure out what's the best way to handle this. And I think that's the best way to lead if you're going to do that, is to really be open for input, criticism, and having honest communications about, and developing that culture where people can come up to you and say, hey, I don't think we should do that. And then you're like, well, why not? What are you thinking? And then you have that truthful conversation, and if you allow that, you come up with a better plan.
Yeah. What about you, John?
One of the things I've always, especially I guess here later in my career, is I've fallen into that youth stuff. I used to like to do this, and I used to like to go out, and I used to like to go fishing, and I used to like to, do things away from work. And I've really found myself where I need to start having more hobbies and things like that. So I think in the last year, I probably have gotten better and taken time to like do things that I like to do. I like to go out and play golf with you guys because it's kind of fun to watch. So, but I think I gotten better on that, and there's definitely a benefit in kind of getting away from work and enjoying yourself, going fishing, taking my daughter fishing. That's a good time always, and just getting better as being a human being. For sure.
I'm up and down with that, man. Sometimes I'm out visiting people, and other times I've kind of been doing this last month or two where I'm just like shut the door and kind of close off, And I recognize I do that, and I know that's probably not the best thing, but I don't know.
Man, it's really easy to
is.
fall into that trap right now,
Yeah.
especially this time of year because it's just so cold, and we've had snow on the ground for like almost 2 weeks.
Yeah,
now.
you have that. That always makes me laugh a little bit. That seasonal affective disorder, which is the acronym is SAD. You ever thought about that?
No, I haven't, but I definitely suffer from that for sure.
Yeah,
man. It's like there's no sunshine. I think we've pushed past some of the darkest days of the year now, and so we'll start seeing more and more sunshine. But man, it's depressing to me because you want to go outside. It's freezing cold. It's dark after work and everything, and it's just like,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So just to follow up on that, then, and I know that nobody's tuning into Chief, Cap, and Chap for advice, probably, or anything like that. But I think it is helpful to hear from others because certainly us three in this room are not the only three that feel what you guys have just described, right? This kind of weight, this. So what are some things, I mean, you mentioned fishing, you mentioned golf. What are some things that you, as you think forward to this year, that you're thinking you need to be more disciplined on to be grounded better?
I got the answer for this, and I noticed going through struggles and difficulties, the things that make you happier, and the answer to that is, as corny as this sounds, but is literally serving other people, but human nature, and when you're going through difficulty, you fall in this poor, pitiful me. Why do I got to go through this? This sucks. This is terrible. Mm-hmm. And, you can forget other people are dealing with this too, and you can show up for them. And it's almost selfish in a way because I can help this person and I gain something from that. Uh-huh. We both do.
Right.
We both win from that scenario. And it's easy to fall into that poor, pitiful me, and why do I got to go through this, and shut your doors at your home and just kind of, I got to go to work now, and just, but if you can really focus on helping other people, man, you are so much more mentally healthier and better. You better other people around you. People gravitate towards you. You're just more positive and happier. You're just happier doing that. So I think trying to remember to do that, especially during the difficult times, is something that I try to remind myself of. So
that's good.
Yeah, the only thing I would take away from that is, and I think I've fallen into this trap before, and throughout my career, is I want to go out and I want to help, and serve and just complete strangers, and would just do whatever I could possibly do to help them in their situation, just above and beyond. But then sometimes I may neglect my own family.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day rolls around and I've been out just serving everyone I could possibly serve and helping everybody. And then I come home and then I neglect the people that love me the most. So there's a balance there you have to maintain.
You're not wrong. We had all this snow and stuff, and I got this snow plow on my truck, and I try to do our parking lots and all that stuff. And I get busy trying to help everybody do that. And I go home, and guess whose walkway is covered in snow? It's mine, And my wife's like, "Are you going to get out there and shovel that snow?" I'm like, "I am not touching that snow. It's that I'm tired, It's like, and I finally got to it. It took a while, but she didn't like that.
Yeah, sometimes something will happen. We'll get a notification or something going on the streets or whatever, and I'll get my stuff on and run out of the house, and my wife will be like, well, "Where are you going?" I was like, "The boys need me," and sometimes she stopped me and said, "Well, your wife needs you." I'm like, "Okay, yeah." Well, I'll be back about an hour or two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, one of the things that you mentioned, just to kind of jump back to the happiness thing, when I think about that, and in the act of service, I think there is, when we define terms and use correct terms, I think it helps us with that, because like when you think about happiness is conditional, right? And so if things are going well, I can be happy. If things are not going well,
right,
then it's hard to be happy, right? And it almost doesn't make sense,
right,
to be happy. And what we often find when we're serving is that we have to find the joy, and joy is different than happiness. Joy is unconditional.
Yeah, I would think joy, because as you were talking, I was thinking, that's kind of right. It's not really happiness. I think it's like I can be content in my circumstance, even though it's difficult, while I'm serving others, because I can feel like, I know this is a hardship that we're having to endure, but I can be present for other people and feel a sense of accomplishment and being available for others and myself. That way I'm not letting myself down.
Yeah, and that's what joy does. I mean, right now I'm preaching at the church that I am a preacher at. We're preaching through the book of Acts. We're in Acts chapter 16, Acts chapter 17 right now. The Apostle Paul is going through. He's sharing the gospel in these different communities, and we're seeing the start of the church we've seen it in Berea, we're seeing it in Athens, Corinthians, or in Corinth and Thessalonica. And anyway, and last week when I was preaching, one of the things that stuck out to me in the text was Paul was constantly pushed against when it came to him preaching the gospel. He was always like ridiculed and rejected and arrested and beaten. And I told the church last week, I said, if I was Paul, I know how I would respond to that. And I kind of stood out in front of the podium and I said, I'd find me a little spot right out here in the middle of this floor, and I'd lay down and I'd waller me a spot and throw a fit. That's what I would do. Yeah. Because that doesn't sound like something my flesh would enjoy, is to be ridiculed and persecuted and pushed against for saying something and doing something that I am 100% confident that I believe in. But Paul wasn't about the happiness thing. He was about the joy of serving the Lord. And he knew that it was true, and he knew what was coming. And so because of the joy that was coming in his service, he didn't give up. He didn't throw a fit. He didn't waller him out of spot and just be handcuffed from serving. It actually drove him to serve even more, because he knew, I know the truth, and these people need to hear the truth. And so he would press into that, and he would keep going. And if the Lord shut the door here, he would go to the next place. And so when I think about serving, like in general, when we serve, there's this idea that joy, it pushes us. It pushes us to not stop. It pushes us to press on. James tells us to count it joy when you fall into various trials. And that doesn't make sense if it would say count it happiness when you fall into various trials, because that doesn't make sense. But when there's joy, even in those difficult times that we faced at the end of this year, the difficult times that are going, they're coming, right? Yeah. 2026 it's not going to be free from difficulties. And so we are faced with this option of, do we quit or do we press on? And happiness and flesh would cause us to quit. But when we know we're called to it, joy is in the pressing on, right? So, I think that when we think about setting goals for the year, we have to keep those things in mind. Like, this is, even when it's hard, I know that I'm supposed to be doing this. And I imagine getting that out to your officers is something that you guys have to do.
Well, I think this profession in general, so just kind of to your point, last night they had a first responders appreciation dinner, and I spoke at that. It was honoring Henry Franklin. And one of the things I was talking about is service and having a life that actually that matters. You know what I mean? It's you're influential, that you can actually it's just it matters. It's I'm missing the word I'm thinking of, but regardless, people get into various professions because they felt led to do that. And, law enforcement and firefighting, where you're directly assisting your fellow man, is an important aspect. It's very rewarding. It can be. Certainly, it's very challenging. I mean, you're not just embraced by everybody on the street all the time. There's various perceptions in law enforcement, against law enforcement and things like that. But I also think about, if you had no challenges in your life, what kind of life would that be? You know what I mean? If you want, so probably most people think their idea of happiness is not having any difficulties and not having any problems or challenges. And then as you're 75 years old looking back on your life, you'd probably think, I wasted my life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But having a life of purpose, I think, is really where you gain achievement and self-respect of I know this wasn't easy. Not anybody could do this, or regardless what you do. It doesn't have to be law enforcement or firefighting or anything like that. I mean, but people have to have something that's fulfilling a life of purpose. And if you avoid all those challenges and difficulties, you're going to miss it. Mm-hmm. You're going to miss it. And I think ultimately you'll regret not having, provided more for others, so.
And I think that's why it's so important that you find out what you are on this earth to do, right? If you're doing something, and I think in terms of certainly finances come into play, right? And so when you're a kid or when you're growing up and you're getting ready to graduate and you're thinking, I want to do something, I want to be rich, right? Like have the American dream, a wife, 2.5 kids, a house with a white picket fence, and not have to worry about finances. And so whatever I have, if that is the end goal, well, unfortunately, there's a large possibility that your life is going to be miserable.
Have you ever heard? You just remind me of Jim Carrey talking about that. Have you ever heard him talking?
I have
about
not.
I'm going to butcher this, but he had basically pursued his career, pursued it. Of course, Jim Carrey's a huge star, and then I think he was on being interviewed by somebody, I don't remember, and he talked about this unfulfilled emptiness that he had felt after achieving all this fortune and fame and everything else. It's very interesting, and just at that point realized that really didn't matter.
Yeah.
I'd have to Google it because I don't remember, but I do remember that. I found it interesting that he would say that, because I'm sitting here thinking, dude, you've got probably more money than and you're famous and everything else. And then here this guy who has all that says, that's not what's important.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there was a very wise man that wrote that by the name of Solomon.
Yeah.
He wrote an entire book in the Old Testament called Ecclesiastes about that. But
it's all vanity.
Everything under the I mean, that's what he says in Ecclesiastes. It's everything under the sun is vanity, vanity of vanities. And the call of that Old Testament book is to look higher. Yeah. Look higher in everything that you do. It's not just about satisfying the flesh. It's not just about making yourself happy. It's not just about being comfortable, not having any problems. But life is about doing what you were created to do. And so to get to what I was saying is that I think that actually, when you try to set goals for the year, we have to keep that in perspective. Like, why am I here?
Yeah.
Why am I? For me, I think God has given me another day. He's given me breath in my lungs today. So why am I here? And I just have to believe it's more than I've been here to put in 8 hours to get a paycheck to go pay my electric bill. It's more than that, And so as I set goals, I have to figure out, what is that more? What am I here to do? And when you can find that, then really dollar signs don't matter.
Yeah.
It's what you've dedicated your life to do, and that fulfillment of serving faithfully.
You can certainly tell the difference in people that do that. So in any profession, and I'll use this one because this is where we work, but you have people that come for a paycheck. You may have some that come for the respect and attention that comes with being in a position of authority. And then you have others that come to actually serve others, So, and those that are like really trying to serve others and endure the difficulties and hardships, but pressing on, they stand out. I mean, we could sit here and go through the list and just point out this one, this one, this one, this one, and on any of those categories, And, you have all different types in any organization because we're all just people. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
I definitely drew some parallels to your story about Paul, and I was comparing that to being a police officer in 2020, and I definitely had that that thought in my head of like, okay, yeah, I'm done. This is, everything was so negative towards law enforcement and the police, and that we were all bad, just based on the actions of a few, that we were all bad. The profession was bad, and it would have really been an easy time for me in my life, being in policing for 25 years at that point, to be like, okay, yeah, this is my end. But in my mind, it was like, I'm not going to allow a few that don't know the actual truth behind the good people that work in law enforcement to determine that my end, per se.
Yeah. Well, and social media is just, if you really break that down, it is a few. And it's not that there's not officers out there that have done inappropriate things or excessive use of force or violated, their code of conduct or lost their respect or integrity and all that stuff. This stuff happens, but it's such a marginal aspect of policing. I mean, it's here. We go through thousands of calls throughout the year. I mean, positive interactions. And sometimes there's like one that's like, what happened here? Like, well, okay, our guy could have handled that a little bit better or whatever. And then you talk about people that are posting this stuff online, and there's a group of people that just they use police officers because they know that can be very confrontational. And then they try to post these videos that, they set them up for confrontation. And then they, and what they're wanting their likes, they're wanting their follows, they're trying to get paid a lot of times. I mean, so unfortunately, to borrow a term from church, that's our cross to bear, and that's the way it is. We know that, but we also know that our integrity and our conduct should be at a higher standard. And we also know they're doing that, so we should learn from that and be professional. But it's unfortunate, but a lot of times they just set officers up. And not to say that there's not things that have happened. There certainly is. But I would argue that is a high minority of stuff that happens throughout the country.
Yeah. So when you and I'll say this by saying, here's what I do. So at the end of every year, I take about a week because there are weeks near the end of the year when I have some time that I'm not doing sermon prep, that I kind of have a little bit more free time. And so I use those weeks near the end of the year to ask the Lord, like, okay, what do you need me to focus on for next year in my personal life? And so at the end of last year, as I was thinking over in my personal life, what the things that had happened, it was a very difficult year, not only with everything that we've talked about at the department, but even in my family, and there were some difficult things. And I lost a cousin who was a law enforcement officer over in Springfield to a motor vehicle accident. Him and his wife passed away. Just a lot of things happening, and it was a very difficult year. And real easy for me to become undisciplined in everything, like just to be like, woe is me, and let things just go. And so at the end of last year, discipline was the word that was brought to me. So for 2026, discipline is my focus. And so for me, that has been health, working on what I eat, how I eat, when I eat, exercise, being disciplined and caring for my body, discipline in finances, discipline in my relationships. In other words, making sure that I'm not falling into the trap of forgetting to care for my wife, forgetting to care for my kids while I'm caring for others. And my wife is so awesome that she actually helps me do that, and she helps me care for others by the way that she lives her life. And so she helps me be disciplined in that. and she's so great, such a great partner. So that's the thing that I'm focusing on for 2026 is discipline. How can I make sure that I am more disciplined in everything that I'm supposed to be here to do? Mm-hmm. How can I make sure that I'm disciplined as one of the pastors of the church? How can I make sure that I'm disciplined as an executive director for downtown, as a chaplain for the police department? How can I make sure that I am doing what I am supposed to do? So my focus this year is discipline. Do you guys ever have anything like that where you kind of look through something that you're going to focus on for the year?
I could probably have more discipline about that. I think it's very easy to fall into what's the next thing that's happening, what's coming across my desk, you know what I mean? And you just get so focused on that. And there's times where I sit back and try to think, what do we need to do as a department? Not just what's on my desk, but what direction do we need to work on? What our direction we need to go? What topic is really affecting the department? And I could be better about that. So we were talking about this, and it just kind of made me think. Do you find yourself doing that? Because I know you're very busy. You're serving in a variety of different areas, not just us. Do you find is it easy to kind of neglect the home a little bit when you're doing all that?
It is very easy to do that.
Because Crystal, she is good. I know she's great.
Man.
And, I see that myself. You don't have to tell me.
Yeah.
And so if I'm you, and like my wife is doing all this stuff, and I'm like, she's got it. You know what I'm saying?
But so with that comes, I also I ask God to give me a heart to see her heart. Give me a heart to make sure that I'm caring for her, to make sure that I'm lifting her up. My first responsibility in this life is to her. Yeah. Period. So when
You're saying that because she watches the shows?
I don't know if she does or not, actually. I'm saying that because that's the conviction that I have. Right. And, but what I have learned, and so we're 20 years into marriage now. And so what I have learned is that when I care for her, that empowers her to also care for others, which is a part of what she's called to do in caring for others.
You're charging her batteries, basically.
I feel like that. And again, as you mentioned earlier, on the flip side of that, she then empowers me to care for others. I'll give you a prime example. And I don't think that she'll mind me sharing this, but we had that house fire just a couple of weeks ago over here in town where there was someone's trapped in the house. It was literally I had just laid down for bed, but the house fire was just about 4 blocks from my house. So the tones go off, paging all stations, and the first voice that responded was John. And he was at Main and Malone. And he said, I see it. I'm headed that way, and then he gets on scene. He says, somebody's trapped in the house. And my wife said, John is going to go in there by himself. You need to go. Now, I'm a chaplain. What am I going to do? But in that moment, I was like, well, yeah, John, I'm not going to let John, it's right here. If he's going to try to go in, I'm going to help him, whatever that.
Yeah, whatever that is.
Whatever that is. So, she was like, you go. And so I got up, got dressed and went. But that's just little things like that. And then when I got home, it was, a couple hours, get home. And she's waiting up for me and she's, you good? Everything okay? Everybody okay? And so those types of things, it's like this snowball effect of caring for others. If I care for her, she cares for others, then empowers me to care for others. Right. And so, and I can tell when that gets out of whack because there's tension when it gets out of whack. And so, but if I can be disciplined at realizing I need her and I have to take care of her and I have to take care of the kids. So it can get out of whack, and that's never a problem that you solve. It's always something that you have to manage.
Yeah. I talked to somebody last night after I spoke at that event, and they were talking about they were married to a first responder and difficulties that happen. And I thought this was really interesting. She says, we realize that we are in this. She said when we had something take place, she had a traumatic event happen in her family. And she said, I felt like I had to be there 100% for our family, my husband, everything. He felt like he had to be there 100% for his wife and his family. And she says that at some point we realized, no, that's not how this works. Like, we are one, and we have got to be there 100% for our family. Now, what she says, what that means is there's going to be days that I'm struggling with what had occurred. And I'm not going to get into that, but she says, and I would tell my husband, we had a conversation about it. She said, I would tell my husband, I'm at 20 today. I need you to be 80, And he would have days like that. He'd have a hard day at work to be in the first responder that he is. He says, hey, babe, I'm at a 40 today, and she'd have to be the 60, And I found that to be very interesting. I'm like, that requires communication. It requires a lot of love for one another, understanding, and saying, yeah, I got that 60.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we saw that. I think that was on display back in October when everything went down here with Henry.
Yeah.
It was interesting to me to see the wives of the officers or the spouses of the officers that we don't ever get to really see,
Right.
And to see them all come together. I mean, we saw that. So I think that's a great picture. And so, I guess if nothing else, we need to be disciplined with making sure we're caring for our loved ones.
Yeah. So you got two in your household, 2 kids now driving, right?
Well, sort of.
Sort of.
My oldest is driving, and my second oldest got her permit, so she's driving just permit wise. So
I remember when Audra got her license, I was like, yes, because you send her on errands and everything, and she takes care of, picks up sisters and all that stuff. And then she went to college, and I was like, that's back on us now.
Well, that's what we're about to experience, I think, with Cade. He's graduated and getting ready to start pursuing what his life's going to be. So he may be going soon.
That was the most stressful portion of my parenting career was when your child starts driving. So
yeah, turns out my daughter probably drives better than I do. So so I wasn't worried about it too much.
Yeah, it can be nerve wracking, but part of life. Mm-hmm. So all right, so what about you guys? We talked about discipline for me. What about you, John? Something that you thinking about focusing on this year?
I think. I think it's really easy for everybody to kind of focus on the negative sometimes. Sometimes the negative can breed more negativity, and so I would just say, don't focus on the bad things. Bad things in life are going to happen, but don't just be waiting for that next black cloud. Maybe you're going through something. Maybe something's difficult for you right there at that particular moment, but focus on how you're going to get through it. Maybe the events that led up to whatever that happened, how you can fix it and move on, and think some good things are around the corner. I think if we focus on the negativity, then we're just breeding more negativity.
And man, that is so prevalent in first responder worlds. I mean, because that's what you deal with all the time. That's the call. People are calling you at their worst day, their worst event, and you got to go handle that. And you're experiencing that with them in a lot of ways. I think we could be better about after a call. Maybe, hopefully, some of these guys do this. About we could probably encourage this more about. Hey, that was a difficult call, but what good came out of that? What do you think? And having that conversation, really try to reinstill that thought you had there. So
yeah, and I think naturally they, we talk about our peer support and debriefings and things like that. That's always kind of really taking place within our roll calls. We before we start our shift, we'll have a roll call, and then maybe at the end of the night before we go home, I think the squads do a pretty good job about talking about things. And one of the things that we try to emphasize to our officers and supervisors is, hey, maybe that call that you guys went on wasn't traumatic or wasn't upsetting to you, but it may have affected someone else differently. Maybe they have an experience that they personally could relate to this person going through whatever. So be respectful of that. And if they're struggling with it or, they're acting different, it may affect them differently. So don't diminish or belittle whatever kind of call it was that maybe somebody's upset about.
Yeah. Well, something else, just a side note, completely different things that I'm celebrating. My daughter, Audra, who's married to Nolan, they found a house this week in Cape, and they're buying. They put a contract on it, and it all went through. So
Sweet.
They're getting a house finally. They've been renting in Jackson, so.
They're going to have you a space in the basement or something?
Father-in-law suite.
I can envision myself probably helping because there's some painting and
That's kind of fun. That's
and all that
exciting.
stuff to be done. But it looks like a really nice home.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
houses are so hard to find, especially up in that area.
It's
that are
crazy.
reasonably priced. Because they're just getting started out and stuff. But
Nothing is reasonably priced anymore.
No, it's not. It's high. For sure. Interest rates are up a little bit.
I can't imagine being a young person right now and, starting out your professional career and trying to find a place to live, whether you're even trying to rent or buy. Rent is it's almost more cost effective to buy a house.
Yeah, she was going through that process, and she had called me. She's like, "Hey, we found this house. Is this much? And this blah blah." I'm like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
It's like, and she said, "Yeah, I know it's a lot." I'm like, "Yeah, it's a lot. You keep looking, probably." Yeah.
Well, it looks like it's going to be a great year. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, it's not going to be a perfect year by no means, but it's going to be the year that it's going to be, and it's going to be great. And I think I'm looking forward to 2026. I know we're already a month in. We've already experienced some crazy stuff with the weather, but 2026 looks to be a good year. Looking forward to it, brothers.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, the groundhog, I guess, saw his shadow. And so I guess we got more winter, maybe.
Yeah, and then we get like 60 degrees next week.
Yeah.
So maybe he was wrong.
Man, that snow needs to melt, that's for sure, as most of it has. Maybe we'll get some more today. Looks like it's warming up, so. Well, anything else?
I'm good.
Yeah. I'm good.
I'm good.
All right. Well, until next time, we appreciate you guys. And always think about sending us an email, at chief.cap.chap@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Tell us what you think about the show. Give us some ideas, and we read those. So that's about all I got. It's episode 2, season 2, down in the books.
Mm-hmm.
We need to remember to take the high road.
Take the high road.
All right. See you guys.